3 drawbacks of using a trust fund to pass on wealth. A trust fund is an effective scheme to build, protect, and pass on wealth to your offspring or other beneficiaries. But like all things in life, it comes with a few downsides. Check out this video to learn about the 3 disadvantages you should keep in mind when drawing up a trust fund, and get a better idea of what you're getting yourself into when you start using trust funds in your own financial plans. Welcome back, folks, to another edition of Sweetie Kiwi. How are you doing today? I hope you are doing fantastic. I'm doing marvelous. If you are doing as great as I am, go grab a cup of coffee or tea or vodka and let's roll. I first want to talk to you today about 3 drawbacks, only 3, of using a trust fund to pass on wealth. The first one is something called irrevocable trust funds. The assets in that scheme are no longer yours. A loss of control that comes with transferring asset to an irrevocable trust as opposed to a living trust, also known as inter vivos trust or a testamentary trust. So people use that kind of irrevocable trust to achieve the maximum estate tax exemption benefits. However, you have to understand, when you transfer your property, your money, whatever assets you have to an irrevocable trust fund, you have created a double-edged sword. You can no longer treat those assets as if they belong to you because legally they don't. So this irrevocable trust fund works solely in the interest of the beneficiary if you opted to name yourself as the trustee. So those assets are automatically taken out of your balance sheet. So if you have to borrow or you want to get into a business partnership, the money that you transfer, not just the money here, any property, any asset that you transfer into an irrevocable trust become the beneficiary's asset. You can be a trustee of that trust fund. However, it does not belong to you. So this is really clear. The law has made it very simple. And the reason why you cannot claim those properties as your assets anymore on your balance sheet is because you have a fiduciary duty to the beneficiary. As a trustee, you have a fiduciary duty to the beneficiary, which is not to be taken lightly. Let's talk about trust funds, trustees, and beneficiaries. So if you establish a trust fund, the trustee you name owes a fiduciary duty to the beneficiaries. This is one of the reasons why it is important you ask the right questions to ensure a good fit prior to naming a trustee. That is, of course, assuming that you don't want to be the trustee yourself. On the other hand, has the very fact that an irrevocable trust no longer belongs to you in terms of assets makes it a great tool, a great vehicle to protect those assets from creditors. Let's say something happens to you, or you are just entangled in a situation, they cannot come after you. The creditors will not come after you because the money and the property are not yours anymore. As long as you don't engage in a so-called fraudulent transfer, which means specifically moving money into a trust in anticipation of a potential adverse legal claim, in which case a judge might reverse the transaction. Money gifted to a trust can often be beyond the reach of lenders. If you go bankrupt, lose anything, and find yourself destitute, but you spent decades building up a legitimate trust fund for your children, they should not be hurt. As a parent, you would have provided an inheritance for them despite losing everything yourself. So properly structured, the same is true if your child gets in trouble and you have included clauses in your trust documentation, such as something called the spendthrift trust protection. Spendthrift. What is it? A spendthrift is one of the most effective tools for protecting, preserving, and passing wealth on to heirs. It is a unique tool for keeping a family's money safe, not only from creditors, but from the heirs themselves. It retains most of its assets for an extended period of time, making only quantified distributions to beneficiaries, not transferring assets to them entirely and all at once. So if you have a parent that plans on leaving you money, ask for the cash to be put into a trust fund that you cannot access with specific annual dividend distributions. That way, You can live off of the passive income, but your creditors should not be able to touch the principal since technically it does not belong to you. A lot of parents have resorted to that option because let's say you are rich and you're thinking about generational or intergenerational money transfer, and you are not very sure that if your kids are financially intelligent, financially smart to manage the money, create a trust fund and a spendthrift trust so that they are getting money periodically. The dividends can be monthly, quarterly, or annually or biannually. So, but the principal is never touched. All right. I'll be right back right after this. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back, folks, to another edition of Sweetie Kiwi. We are still talking today about 3 drawbacks of using a trust fund to pass on wealth. In the first section, I explained to you that an irrevocable trust, when you set it up and you transfer property into the trust fund, the property is no longer yours. That's the first drawback. Let's talk now about the second drawback. The second drawback is that a trust fund has unfavorable tax rates. But before I elaborate on that, let me just quickly tell you, if you love the kind of content you're hearing right now and you like to hear more, please consider subscribing to our channel and turn on the notification bell so you are informed in real time whenever we release a new show. And we do this every single day, rain or shine. If you have questions, if you have comments, please put them in the comment section. We'll answer your question if this is a pertinent question, a relevant question for the topic we're talking about. Share this content and like. Now, why does a trust fund has unfavorable tax rates? Congress routinely updates the tax brackets to adjust for the inflation rate. Unfortunately, for decades, the House of Representatives and the Senate have maintained the policy that the tax rates applied to trust funds should be compressed compared to the ordinary marginal rates applied to individuals holding the exact same investments. For example, according to the IRS, in the tax year 2019, the following federal trust fund tax rates are applied on any income retained by the trust. Retained income of under $2,600 is taxed at 10%. Retained income of over $2,600 but not over $9,300 is taxed at $260 plus 24% of the excess over $2,600. Retained income over $9,300 but not over $12,750 is taxed as $1,868 plus 35% of the excess over $9,300. Retained income of over $12,750 is taxed as $3,075.50 plus 37% of the excess over $12,750. So an unmarried individual, in contrast, would never hit the 37% federal tax rate until taxable reached more than $510,300. To make it worse, state taxes on the retained trust income are going to be owed in most states as well, which will be in addition to the federal trust taxes. Then there are other issues such as the generation skipping tax. We have an entire show covering that topic. It's a very interesting topic, which can apply. The generation skipping tax can also apply to trust funds. There is a small respite, however, because that income distributed by the trust to the beneficiaries, including dividends, interest, and rents, is taxable to the beneficiary at his or her own rate. The philosophy behind this unequal treatment is that it will make it less attractive for families to amass aristocratic levels of wealth in a trust, though they are easy enough ways around it. We all know about the fiscal optimization industry around the whole world, right? For example, the investment advisors overseeing the portfolio of a large trust fund as an individually managed account could arrange the equity investments to emphasize non-dividend paying stock or stocks with low dividend payout ratio, such as shares of Berkshire Hathaway, the holding company built by billionaire Warren Buffett. The increase in book value should, over time, result in unrealized capital gains, effectively creating a deferred tax liability that enables the trust to have more capital working for it than it otherwise would if the look-through earnings generated by the trust asset had been paid out to the trust as cash dividends. Now, this could be a little technical here, so I'm not going to go into detail and explain it here. Just know that overall, a trust fund has unfavorable tax rates. Whether it is a very simple scheme or a complicated scheme, it is unfavorably taxed because, and a lot of people have said that, even experts are saying that by emphasizing distributions, investment income that would have been taxed at much higher rates can be instead taxed at a less confiscatory rates on the beneficiary's personal income tax filing. So it takes a lot of planning. The bottom line here is that it takes a lot of planning, folks, many years, and good legal, tax, and investment advisors to pull it off correctly. But for families that are in the top 1%, it can be worth it, especially when used with the annual gift tax exclusion. I'll be right back right after this. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back, folks, to another edition of Sweetie Kiwi. We are still talking today we were talking about the 3 drawbacks of using a trust fund to pass on wealth. In the first section, I was just telling you that in an irrevocable trust fund, the assets are no longer yours. That's the first drawback. The second drawback is that a trust fund has unfavorable tax rates. Now let's talk about the third one. The third one is that a trust fund typically creates financial dependence. And this has been studied by psychologists and psychiatrists and universities as prestigious as Harvard, Stanford, and MIT. What is it? Most people need meaning in their life, and money alone cannot provide meaning once the basic necessities have been met. This is there's a whole discipline called behavioral psychology that studies that. So when it comes to trust fund and financial dependence, researchers have identified something called the Golden Ghetto Syndrome. The Golden Ghetto Syndrome. And the Golden Ghetto Syndrome, in a nutshell, it means that if people are given everything, if people are not allowed to fish for themselves, if they're not allowed to learn how to fish, but they're given the food all the time, basically you have some kind of lethargy, some kind of complacency that in the end is detrimental to the individual's self-development, individual growth, and individual's happiness. To demonstrate this point, imagine for a moment 2 fictional men. All right, I'll go with Joe and John. So Joe has a net worth of 1 million. He's comfortable, he lives pretty well, he lives in a great area, and all his income comes from funds generated by his success. He's a hardworking man. He has invested, he has done everything right. He is trying to educate himself. He hangs out with thought leaders who are very, very smart. So that's for Joe. He has $1 million, all built from all built from entrepreneur, right? So he's a self-made man. And you have John. John has the same net worth, $1 million. He lives pretty well. He's very comfortable. However, all of his money comes from the trust fund his grandfather set up for him years ago. So for John, if you really think about it, the clothes on his back were provided by another man's labor. The home in which he lives was funded by another man's accomplishment. The furniture, cars, vacation, food, watches, all the bling bling he has are only there because of the provision set aside due to the success of someone else. Now, none of this, all the properties that he had, none of this reflects his contribution to society because he has done nothing. So what's going to happen here is that between Joe and John, researchers have noticed that people who get this, they have, when you analyze, when you compare and contrast them, you have John who will develop some kind of depression and aimlessness. And people have there have been a lot of names. You have names such as affluenza or golden ghetto. In other words, there are people who are there because they have large financial resources, but they don't have a plan. They don't have no aim. in life. You see this a lot, for example, when somebody wins all of a sudden the lottery and they can't really do anything around it because they're not prepared. They haven't worked for it. They haven't sweated for it. I'm not saying that you have to always work for everything you earn in life. No, there are a lot of schemes out there, including passive income approaches that allow you to make money while you're sleeping. But at least even for passive income, you have to put in the startup capital. You have to invest at the beginning and then see the money flow, right? So the Golden Gate Syndrome applies to individuals such as John, who have received everything from a grandfather or a great-grandfather or a father, and they have not worked with their own hands to generate the money. Now, how do you avoid the Golden Gate? One way to avoid this trap is to only give money to your children, those who have been successful on their own, right? So if you see, you just kind of look at your offspring and see those who are already working, trying to make money, trying to grow personally, trying to grow professionally, so you are in essence encouraging them. You're not putting everything on the table for them. You're telling them, hey, listen, I see that you are trying to cook. I see that you are in the kitchen. I see that every day you wake up and go to the kitchen. I see that you have done research to learn all the recipes that are important for you to succeed and grow. I'm going to help you. I'm going to help you. I'm going to push you forward so that you can grow faster. That's a lot easier, a lot better than trying to put food on the table for someone who is constantly sleeping. So the best way to avoid the Golden Gate is to help your children, grandchildren, and other beneficiaries and heirs develop into self-sufficient, happy, healthy, and financially smart adults. It's not about giving them money. Sometimes money helps, don't get me wrong, but sometimes it hurts. And wisdom is knowing which apply to a specific situation. The last thing you want to have is that your children or grandchildren or beneficiaries are fighting over your money while you're still alive or after you're gone. All right, I'll be right back. No, this is really the end. Okay, folks, this is the end of today's conversation, and I was just giving you 3 drawbacks of using a trust fund to pass on wealth, and the 3 are irrevocable trust funds actually takes the properties away from you, so you no longer owns them. A trust fund has unfavorable tax rates, and a trust fund generally creates financial dependence. I will see you another time, but until then, remember, stay marvelous.